Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Chanelle Carlin Weddings, rituals, celebrations, and moments that matter. My name is Chanelle Carlin, for those of you who haven't seen me in a while. It's been a busy year, lots of weddings, lots of events happening. So I haven't posted as many videos here as I normally would have, but today is a day that is an important day for me, and I wanted to share it with you. So I thought, what better way to share it in a video? I was actually going to come on yesterday and share another post, but again, time got away with supporting clients and no time to video. So I may actually write this story out later. I was going to write it as a written blog, but it's just such a personal story. I thought that I would take some time to share it in a video message. So today is December 7th, 2023. And it's important because while it's lots of people's birthdays, including one of my best friends from childhood, and for some people it's just your average Thursday, but for military folks and for military families, especially those who served in the American military in World War II, it is Pearl Harbor Day. It's a day we commemorate the event, the attack on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. So people will be questioning maybe, why do we even think about this still? Why do we talk about it? Why do we commemorate these days? And I think it's really important, as a historian, we commemorate these days for two reasons. One, we want to make sure that we remember our history. We don't want to erase our history. We don't want to forget things because unfortunately, as a race of people, as a human race, when we forget things, you can probably hear my cat, we tend to repeat some of those same mistakes. So ideally, if we remember things, especially important events in our lives, we might not repeat those negative mistakes. So I think that's one reason. The other reason is it's a chance to commemorate the people that were involved and take some time to honor folks and thank people and just remember people. And if you don't think about them at any other point in time throughout the year, when these days come along to commemorate a special event or a significant event, it's a good day to remember. So today, while I remember her throughout the year, I would like to just share a story about my Aunt Marguerite, who is a Pearl Harbor survivor. And I would love to hear any stories that you have about your family members and ancestors who may have been at Pearl Harbor during the attack in 1941. And again, just really because I'd like to have you honor your family members and share your stories, because I think that's really what this is about. Honoring them by remembering them and sharing a little bit about them. So my Aunt Marguerite, she was a lieutenant in the Army during World War II. She was a nurse. Her name at that time was Marguerite Oberson. And she was a lovely woman, probably about 5'6", long dark hair, beautiful smile, and just a spitfire. She grew up in Colfax in Eastern Washington here. And then, so I'm sure that, being stationed in Hawaii probably didn't seem like too bad of a deal. There are photos of her actually out on the beach, standing next to her convertible in her, pantsuit, and also, hanging out with her friends and picnicking and frolicking on the beach. And, she was obviously loving life, which is awesome. She was also engaged while she was there to a young airman. And all of my couples know, because I share this story with them in their monthly emails, that her engagement ring to this young man was a star sapphire. And I have her engagement ring. It's been passed down through to my mom and then to me. And it's a beautiful ring, but it's an honor just to have it as a memory from her and something to help me remember her every day. Anyway, she was engaged to a young airman. in Hawaii, and there are photos of them together as well. So on December 7th, early in the morning, for those who don't know the story, waves and waves of planes from the Imperial Navy ships came and bombed our ships at Pearl Harbor. And thousands of young men were injured and killed. And when you think of, where they were on ships, and so they were sleeping. They had no way of, it was very early in the morning. Most people were asleep. They didn't know, they weren't prepared for an attack. So nobody was ready. They were living in Hawaii. They were living a great life. And those who were on duty were sleeping, or who were on ship were asleep, or they were on duty at their duty stations, but they weren't prepared for an attack. So as these planes come over and they start dropping bombs, thousands of people drowned, or Griffey is just desperate to get out through the big window where there is no way to get out. So they drowned, some of them while they were sleeping, some of them were burned in oil from the ship sinking, some were killed just in the bombings, and then some died from their injuries afterwards after they'd been rescued. So all medical professionals obviously that day were in working, whether they were doctors or nurses or orderlies, whatever their role was. In fact, everybody, all leave was canceled, and everybody had to come back and get to work and try and help, including my Aunt Marguerite. So her job that day was to help doctors wherever she could, to help save patients, to help comfort, the sun is coming low in the sky, to help patients who were suffering from severe injuries, to comfort them, to take care of them, to do whatever she could to make them comfortable. And then for those who were then transitioning from that life, from this life to the next, who weren't going to survive their injuries, to help comfort them. Wow, that is great lighting, isn't it? Sorry about that. The sun obviously is going to change direction fast. Either that or it's the clouds that have just parted. I'm not sure which. Anyway, so she did that on that day. That was her job on that day, was to help care for these young men. And when I say young men, most of them were in their late teens and early 20s. So I have a stepson who's in college, and he's 22, and he would have been old at that time. So it's important to remember, we're not talking about old men who were seasoned at life. We are talking about young men in the prime of their life who were killed in this attack, or who were injured in this attack. And my aunt, she wasn't terribly old. She was only in her 20s when she was there and trying to help them. So on this day, she's doing what she can to help doctors save lives and comfort these young men who are injured. And then she also that day had to identify the body of her fiance who was killed in the attack. And then she had to go back to work. So one of the things that I always remember about her, besides her Spitfire attitude and her zest for life, is her commitment to service and her belief that serving others is more important than dealing with your own stuff, whatever that stuff is. And she passed that along to all of us. I think that's one of the things that really stands out to me, is her love for life, and that serving others is more important than dealing with our own stuff. And we all have it, right? Anyway, a little bit more, pass on, a little bit more about my aunt. So they got through those very difficult days, and then she eventually came home. Years later, she married a man who became my great Uncle Robbie, and they lived a great life together. They traveled the world. They had a boat. My mom and my aunt got to go visit them and hang out on that boat and just spend time with Aunt Marguerite and Uncle Robbie and in their childhood. And it was really, they had a really lovely life together. as my Uncle Robbie got older, he had a stroke, and Aunt Marguerite's nursing background kicked in again, and she cared for him, and she cared for him so well that he recovered from nearly all of his symptoms. I mean, if you didn't know him beforehand, you wouldn't have even known that he had had a stroke. And then years later, when my grandmother, her younger sister, became ill with cancer, she helped care for her as well. My mom and my aunt and my great aunt Marguerite helped care for my grandma. So she was always looking out for us, always looking out for everybody else, putting others before her. But one thing, when she was older, her zest for life really kicked back in again, I'd say. And when she was 92, her health was beginning to fail, and she was not long for this world. But we were celebrating her birthday with her, and she was still pretty vibrant. She was not able to be up and around. She was in her hospital bed in her care home, but her mind was still pretty sharp, and she was still able to engage with us in conversation. And then my brother and I were in the room chatting with her, and my brother says to her, "Aunt Marguerite, thank you so much for letting us celebrate your birthday with you today. We're really happy to be able to be here and celebrate with you." And she says, "Oh, you're welcome. Do you know how old I am?" And he says, "How old are you, Aunt Marguerite?" She says, "I'm 29. And he laughed, she laughed, I laughed. It was a hysterical moment. You might have had to be there, but you picture this little tiny, frail, little 92-year-old woman laying in her hospital bed, and, kind of flirting with her great nephew and telling him that she's 29 years old, and with a little wink and a smirk and a laugh. It was very funny. And what I took from that was, up until the very moments, her last moments of life, she was still loving life and encouraging us to live every moment and love every moment that we had, because we just never know how long we do get. And that's really what I wanted to share with you, is just to take a moment, think about that, remember those people, and remember these stories, and just celebrate the moments. Celebrate all the moments that you can, all the moments that matter with your family, regardless of whether they seem like they should be big or they're small. And on days like today, where we're commemorating a significant event, you don't need to think about the event as much as the people that were there, and the people that were part of that event, and the people in your life that are worth remembering and honoring. And boy, that sunshine has really kicked in, hasn't it? You can barely even see the Christmas tree behind me anymore. So again, my name is Chanelle, and I am honored to be your celebrant for life, to help you celebrate the moments that matter. And I just am really grateful that you're here. And I would love to hear stories about your family members who served at Pearl Harbor during the attacks and the event in 1941, if you have any. And just remember to celebrate the moments that matter to you. Okay. Take care.